thoroughly depressing novel. Started on a weekend, order a pizza, put in a catheter, and see it through. What if dogs were twins? You can tell if it's ready when you prick the protagonist with a fork and they don't respond. The book that I think will win the Women's Prize is... Hello BookTube, welcome back to Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. My name's Scott. Today I'm going to read all 6 books shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction, review them and then try and predict a winner. Now the winner will be announced on the 7th of July, so we'll see if I get that one right. But before I get into that review, I just want to acknowledge the Women's Prize has had some controversy surrounding non-binary and trans women in the past, specifically this year with Tori Peters and in the last couple of years with Akwaeke Emezi. And as a man, it is not my spot to tell the Women's Prize what they should do about defining what a woman is, but what I would like to do is say how the Stella Prize in Australia selects their writers. The Stella Prize is essentially the Australian version of the Women's Prize. That is open to trans women, non-binary and cisgendered women. It doesn't require a change of gender statement or a birth certificate. It's simply up to the author's self-identification. And I just want to read out a quote from them saying, "We recognise what it means to be a woman is not static." So let's get on with the prize. Let's talk about the Women's Prize and see which one is the best book. This year our prize judges are Nezra Malak. Malak is a British Sudanese journalist who was longlisted for the Orwell Prize in 2019. Elizabeth Day, author of 2 books and host of the podcast How to Fail. Vicky Hope, an award-winning TV and radio presenter, journalist, children's author, and human rights activist. Sarah Jane Mee, an award-winning news presenter. And it is chaired by Bernardine Evaristo, author of 8 books, winner of the 2019 Booker Prize, and all-round awesome person. These judges have already curated a long list of 14 books and then cut that down to 6 books, leaving out some exceptionally good books in the process. One remarkable thing about this year's shortlist is that every author nominated is receiving their first nomination. So let's have a look at the novels. Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Piranesi lives in a house by the beach, a house with 13 other people, but he has no one to talk to because they're all dead. The only living person Piranesi sees is a man he calls the Other. Piranesi never sees another living person. He theorised there might be a 16th person, and there we have our mystery, a mystery which must be solved. Clarke continues to paint the picture of this house on the beach whose waves come in and break up over the lowest floor, whose upper floor reaches into the clouds, a house which contains corridors and statues and labyrinths and museums, and dead bodies which must be attended to. Clarke is really working hard to craft this setting, and at the same time she's asking some interesting questions about isolation, about mental health, about happiness and loneliness. Piranesi is living a simple life, seemingly oblivious to the fact that he is trapped and there is an outside world for him to escape to. At its heart, Piranesi is a mystery, and all good mysteries require good drip feeding. If we figure it out too early, there's nothing to keep us interested. And this is how Susanna Clarke drip feeds us. Thanks, Susanna. I got it. No, really, can we move on? I'm not sure this joke is still funny. I mean, it's pretty obvious who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. But there is this mysterious prophet character, and he could be anything. No, you're right, Susanna. No, you're right, Susanna. I wouldn't want to have to think about it too much. Piranesi does have a wonderful setting, and that will be enough for some readers to love this novel. It is a novel remarkably similar in quality to Erin Morgenstern's The Night Circus. Both novels have this dreamy, magical setting, but not a lot else. Morgenstern's novel was incredibly popular, a lot of people enjoyed it, and was longlisted for the 2012 Women's Prize, where it was cut, and this is exactly what should have happened to Piranesi. It's a lack of complex characters which leaves this novel wanting. Such simple characters make any discussion of the themes and the ideas of this novel really mundane. And it really does a complete disservice into the world which Clarke has crafted so well. While this novel will deservingly have its fans, it is just out of its depth on the long list. No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. A debut novel from poet Patricia Lockwood. And the question really shouldn't be, what is this novel about, but more, what is this novel trying to do? Duh, it's trying to be funny. The novel has a quite complex discussion going on. I'm so into that. About climate change. Shoot it in my veins. And birth control. Shoot it in my veins. And birth defects. Shoot it in my veins. And abortion. Sperm it in my hole. Okay, maybe I overstepped a little bit there. But like, shut up. It was ironic. It was post-ironic. And this conversation continues despite this. He's not America's first dictator. Keep up. America has always had a dictator. Duh. Distraction is trying to make it hard for you to... Ah! Help! Help! It's locked itself. It's locked itself. I can't get in. Help! Help! What am I going to do? Your code is 1, 2, 3, 4. You're right. It's like counting. I can remember that. I thought it might have been Lincoln's birthday. Follow what's going on. That's so funny. Lockwood's book is very experimental. And while it is completely brilliant, I'm not sure how enjoyable it actually is. The very act of reading it sparks a question of what should a novel be? What is art? Which are questions that the novel's not actually discussing. Or are they? But this is a novel that could have easily been terrible and unreadable. And the fact that it isn't, and that Lockwood was able to keep something in this madness and keep it at a level which is both accessible and interesting, is an amazing achievement in itself. That she's also been able to create characters and emotions in this chaos is staggering. You didn't mention internet culture. That's because you did. Nuh-uh. I tweeted about it. I'm so funny. I'm like post-funny. It's very hard to compare this novel with other novels. It's so different. And even though I'm still not sure if I actually enjoyed reading it, I do encourage you to give it a shot. The novel gives the judges something different to think about. It's a true outsider, but a true outsider that you just can't write off. If this novel does take the prize, that makes a massive statement about literature. And one more thing. What if dogs were twins? Transcendent Kingdom by Yaa Gyasi. Transcendent Kingdom is a novel with 2 separate timelines. Gifty is a talented neuroscientist. She studies reward-seeking behaviour, depression and addiction. Gifty's family migrated to America from Ghana when she was a child. Gifty's mother is depressed and is living in Gifty's bed. Gifty's father left America to move back to Ghana, and Gifty's brother died of a drug overdose. Gifty's family struggled with money. And as the only black family in the town, Gifty's family struggled with racism, especially from the church, or at times didn't struggle with racism. Gifty is questioning. She is questioning a lot. Her place in the world, her relationship with her mother, her sexuality, and the big question, her spirituality. Gifty is struggling to reconcile her religious beliefs with her scientific career. Did God create the Big Bang? Gyasi has taken on a lot in this novel, and she's given herself less than 300 pages to do it in. She really has to do 2 things. Firstly, she needs to bring all these elements together in an effective way. And Gyasi does this by creating great characters, utilising a simple but effective writing style and having a well-planned plot. Secondly, it's not enough to merely have all these elements in a book. It's what you say about them that counts. Gyasi has to either say something original or say it beautifully and better than anybody has done before. And she doesn't. When dealing with grief and loss, Gifty feels numb, and numb is a hard emotion to connect readers with. Miss it by just a tiny bit, and it can all seem slightly clinical. There's really nothing pushing the envelope here. Transcendent Kingdom has touched on a lot of really important issues and intersected them nicely, but it touches on them without adding anything new to the conversation. This book is going to rightly receive a lot of praise. It is fantastic. You should go out and read it. I thoroughly recommend it. But this is not about whether the book is good. It undoubtedly is good. It's about whether the book is the best book written by a woman in the last 12 months. And as good as this book is, it falls short of that mark. Transcendent Kingdom is a good book, but it's not a great book. In 1991, 60% of all the books published were written by women. Despite that fact, in that year, 0 books on the Booker Prize shortlist were written by women. The probability of this event happening by chance is 0.4%, or to put that into perspective, you would expect that to happen on average once every 250 years. In response, the Women's Prize for Fiction was set up, with the first prize being awarded in 1996. While the Women's Prize was being set up, 4 further Booker Prize shortlists were announced, with 23 books being announced on those shortlists, 5 of which were written by women. We would expect this event to happen once every 5,000 years. And when we add in the 1991 Booker Prize, we would be waiting a period of 335,100 years for this event to occur again by chance. Enter 2021, and 15 of the last 24 books nominated for the Booker Prize shortlist were written by women, and the probability of this happening is 51%, making it the most probable of any representation we could have in this period. This chart is courtesy of the article Bias She Wrote by Rosie Chimmer. It charts the gender of the best-selling authors on the New York Times best-selling list. Let's just ignore the fact that genderqueer authors aren't even on this list for a moment and focus on the 90s. At the very start of the 90s, women made up 28% of the bestsellers on the list. By 2001, they'd achieved parity, something they haven't achieved since. I'm not saying that the changes is due to the Women's Prize, but it's that old lemma. What came first, taking women authors seriously, or activists asking us to take women's authors seriously? I don't know, but something happened in the 90s, and maybe the Women's Prize is the cause of this change, and maybe it's a consequence of this change. Critically, the representation of women on the bestseller list is still not at that 60% mark, which reflects the number of books they actually publish. So we can see that not only was this prize actually needed for the women in the 90s, but it's still needed now. The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. The only thing us bibliophiles like more than a book about books is a book which celebrates another book. You've probably already heard that Brit Bennett's Vanishing Half is inspired by the 1929 Nella Larsen novel Passing. The thing is, when you reference previous work, you have to acknowledge that it is still relevant and maybe give it a modern twist. Avocado toast. And embellish it. And Bennett does that. This is not just a Nella Larsen tribute. It's an original novel. Still dry. Unlike me. Bennett expertly uses non-linear timelines to tell the tale of a family saga spanning 50 years, giving us an intimate portrait of 4 different women. Desiree and Stella are identical twins. Both are light-skinned and black, and at the age of 11 they witness a horrible crime. At the age of 16 the twins run away, separate and marry 2 very different men. Both have daughters. Desiree marries a black man and her daughter Jude is significantly darker than her. Meanwhile, Stella uses her light skin to lie about her race. She learns to change her accent and speak like a white person, marries a white man, and her daughter Kennedy is raised with everybody, including Kennedy, thinking that she's white. Stella's experiences as a woman passing as white are often compared to other aspects of society. For example, the fear she feels at being found out can be compared to the feeling Desiree has after she marries an abusive man who she fears may one day kill her. Another question this book raises is happiness. Stella and Desiree start off as twins but end up living very different lives. But ask yourself, who has the better life and who is happier? It's a wonderful little subplot in an excellent book. However, let's get back to the avocado toast. Reese was a wonderful idea for a character. The concept is there. What a brilliant idea. But you can feel that Bennett is so much more comfortable discussing black issues than she is discussing queer issues. You can tell by the number of pages Reese gets in comparison to the cousins or the sisters. Again, I don't want to focus too much on the negatives because this is another exceptional novel. I plan to track down a copy of Bennett's first book, The Mothers, and read that soon, as well as anything she produces in the future. And I highly recommend you go out and get this book and do the same. But is this the best book on the shortlist? How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House by Sherry Jones. This novel comes with 2 warnings. 1, it is gruesomely violent. Have I read a more violent book? I'm not sure. 2, don't start this novel on a school night. I know, it's 288 pages, but trust me, you're just going to keep on reading it until you're finished with it. So just accept facts. Start it on a weekend, order a pizza, put in a catheter, and see it through. What do you want in a good novel? Characters, themes, emotion, language, plot, setting? Can't pick between them? Don't worry, Jones has presented you with a smorgasbord of delight. Set in Barbados in a tropical paradise, literally called Paradise, a resort that feels very eerie and isolated. This book starts with murder and then follows it up with infanticide. And as you wait for the point in this novel where you can catch your breath and gather your thoughts, you soon realise that murder and infanticide are actually Sherry Jones's way of easing you into this novel. This book appears to jump around from narrative to narrative. She went into that tunnel, and when she came out, she only had one arm. He's just bitten Lala on the breast, and he'll do worse. Beckles wants to make his relationship with Sheba something more. Tone won't sell drugs. Mira's husband is dead. Aiden feels nothing. Police officer Beckles is asking about the dead baby. Coolidge is raping his daughter. Get off the island. Martha is stressed about her granddaughter. Lala is going to kill him. In those tunnels, you understand that you do not learn to love a man, because the right man, there is no need for the learning. The love is the most natural thing in the world. You understand that if you must learn to love a man, he's probably not the man you should be loving. If you only got him them raisins, then you wouldn't fought. Tone is not a happy gigolo. Jacinta's all over him. Sheba only wants to see her clients when she's working. Mira has to give her children back. These is the reason why baby dead. Tones sees red. Esme is pregnant. And it all comes together to say something better than the sum of its parts. That silly lady, how will she sweep her house if she only has one arm? This book is the very definition of intersectional. No 2 stories or 2 characters are the same, but by existing side by side and through comparison, you interpret this vivid picture of a suffocating island and an isolating society. What Yaa Gyasi was trying to do when she included all those ideas, Sherry Jones has done it beautifully. Another novel with an isolating setting is Unsettled Ground by Claire Fuller. Dot is dead. Her twin children, Jeannie and Julius, still live at home, and they're broke. They're not just broke, they're in debt, insurmountable debt, and now they have to grieve while trying to be adults for the first time ever in their life. Welcome to Unsettled Ground, a thoroughly depressing novel with the themes of loss, poverty, disability, generational disadvantages, the societal pressure to conform, and how we treat people in society that are different and aren't coping. Recipe for millennial fiction. Take one somewhat heartbroken person in their early 20s. We'd prefer a woman, maybe somewhere on the queer or questioning scale. Take one society that is intent on using and or breaking our protagonist further. Add salt to taste. Mix for 150 to 200 pages of pure joy. You can tell if it's ready when you prick the protagonist with a fork and they don't respond. Add a finding oneself's ending, which gives just enough hope that our protagonists won't kill themselves. The trick is here not to have too sweet an ending. If you're in doubt, you can always just add a squeeze of lemon. And voila, you're done. Avocado toast.
Millennial fiction is a divisive topic on BookTube. Some people love it, like a 24-year-old loves avocados the morning after 7 mimosas and ironic sex. And some people hate it, like a 24-year-old likes being sober around their conservative uncle the morning after 7 mimosas and ironic sex.
I'm cranky.
Fuller's take on millennial fiction is brilliant. By aging her 30 years and making her codependent with her twin and explaining their disadvantages, she manages to disguise millennial fiction as something our cranky audience may be willing to try.
Toast.
It isn't just a groundbreaking idea. Fuller's writing is luscious.
I wonder what this savoury green jam-like substance is on the top. What was that word you were using?
Groundbreaking.
What a groundbreaking idea.
The supporting characters of Maud the dog, Rawson, Gary, Nathan are also well crafted. Bridget was a brilliant addition. Not only does she set off the misery of the book by being helpful and nice towards Jeannie, but she also adds to the misery in her own way. It is clear that she is an unsuitable friend for Jeannie and is a wonderful representation of the two-edged sword that well-meaning Charity can be. The scene where Bridget cooks a meal for Jeannie and Jeannie tries to give her some vegetables that she has grown in her garden and Bridget doesn't know what to do with them is just such a wonderful inclusion in this novel. And yes, the plot can be a little predictable. The predictability of the plot only serves to heighten the emotional connection you have with the twins. That you know what's happening next doesn't detract from the novel at all. It is both clear and believable that neither Julius nor Jeannie know what's coming. And it's not what's coming next that is the big deal anyway. It's how they'll cope with it amongst the emotional exhaustion and limited resources they have left. You start to question, will this be the thing to turn their lives around, or will it be the straw to break their resilience and end them? Set in rural Wiltshire, this novel is nothing short of exquisite. So, which novel will win the Woman's Prize? I don't think Piranesi is a good enough novel to win, so that's just out. The Vanishing Half and Transcendent Kingdom are probably the fans' favourites to win, and they would be popular winners, and I wouldn't be very upset if they won. They're both great books, but I think there are some exceptional novels on the shortlist, which are just better than these two novels. No one is talking about Patricia Lockwood's novel, no one is talking about this. While this novel is an outsider, it's also our most experimental novel, and with a very interesting structure. The judges clearly liked this novel enough to put it on the shortlist, but it's high concept, good art. I think that would be something wonderful about this book winning, and while I think this book is much closer to winning than people realise or give it merit for, I think it needs to catch the judges on the right day, and that means it's always a chance to win, but it's never very likely. That leaves us with two very special novels, and let me say that I think either of these two novels could win. And when you have 5 judges in a room having a conversation, presenting their arguments and trying to make everybody agree with them, it's probable that not all the judges are going to agree with the final decision that they make. And you never know which judge got a bad night's sleep and which judge needs to go to the toilet and will just agree to anything to get out of there, and which judge has had their morning coffee and is making an excellent argument because they're just on. And a lot of people judging these sort of awards have said that if it was awarded on a different day and the weather was different or whatever, that a different book could very easily have won. That being said, it would be a cop-out not to pick a winner out of these two books. Trying to separate these two books was hard because not only were they both excellent books, they were both different books. But in the end, I felt that one of these two books had slightly more universal appeal and would get more people interested in reading it. And that is what I have picked the winner on. So the book that I think will win the Woman's Prize is Unsettled Ground by Claire Fuller.
Oh my god, there's water up my nose. Who wrote this sketch?
You did, fuck with.
You've probably already heard that Brit Bennett's banded.
I could have taken a small bite. Oh, I hope that this gets a laugh.